What's up, fragrance connoisseurs? We are back and we actually have something very special. We have a official sample of Initio Oud for Grace. So I'm going to take this. We're going to give our first impressions, not necessarily distinct first impressions because I have worn it and I've had I got a couple samples to be able to experiment with and experience. But also, of course, we are going to put it up against the OG and see how it compares to Oud for Greatness. And then also, based on some of the notes you'll see as we get into it, we'll also compare it to Haltane from the Parfums de Marly line. So, Initio's Oud for Grace. Can't wait to get into it. Stay tuned for station identification, and we'll get into the new release, Oud for Grace. All right, fragrance connoisseurs, we're back. Oud for Grace is the big new release that's coming out, but also we'll talk about the OG Oud for Greatness real quick because that's going to be what everybody's going to say. Does it compare with Oud for Greatness? Oud for Greatness OG has a good nostalgia with me. The first fragrance, niche fragrance that my wife bought me, and it has a distinct oud, not really a strong kind of Middle Eastern oud, really a westernized oud, but it comes off and it starts off with the saffron, lavender, and nutmeg, and it gives you kind of a spiciness, but also that oud that comes in, it's a distinct Initio kind of westernized oud, and then it rounds it out with patchouli and musk. It becomes a very woody, aromatic, musky with this kind of woody oud that is not barnyard or fecal in any way, but a very deep, dark, woody oud. Very great fragrance, very popular, compliment magnet. Like I said, my wife bought me this as my first niche fragrance from her, and really a great fragrance. Now, when you come into the differences, and we'll take the Initio Oud for Grace, and we'll spray right here and start the opening. The opening is a lot different. Where Oud for Greatness has the saffron and the nutmeg and the lavender, this opens up with black pepper and bergamot. So it gives you kind of what you would think on a lot of fragrances that come off the top that have citrus in the beginning, where Oud for Greatness doesn't have it. And that gives it a very distinct opening that's very bright. And as it goes in, and like I said, I have worn it. I've had it for a little over a week, the samples that I got. But what comes to mind with Oud for Grace very quickly is that there are smoky woods in the base. So I'm gonna put up and we'll go through some of the difference in the notes and stuff like that. But do note that there are smoky woods, and that's gonna be something that's gonna distinctly differentiate it from Oud for Greatness. Now, when you go into this, the oud is that Initio Oud that you know and love in Oud for Greatness, but also the other thing that they bring in is in the mid, they bring in praline and vanilla, which is why I have Haltane up here. And just to give you, because Haltane also has praline and it's in that Oud for Greatness kind of DNA profile or neighborhood, wanted to bring Haltane in as well. But what I can say as far as breaking this down is Oud for Greatness is actually a lot different and would be differentiated from Oud for Grace. Where Oud for Grace, the smokiness comes out almost immediately. The bergamot and black pepper gives it a brightness, but the smoky woods come out, and even though there are many woods that are in the base, really you're getting a smoky wood accord that is there enhancing that distinct Initio Oud. Now, once it starts to settle and once it gets down into the dry down, the praline and the vanilla really come out and give it some sweetness. So you really get into that Initio distinct Oud with smokiness in the background, and then it sweetens up as it goes further and further in the dry down and that praline comes in. Now the question would be, is this different from, say, Haltane? And I would say yes. Haltane is a much richer blend. It has a lot more notes, and it has a very distinct vetiver in here that makes Haltane really woody and distinctively woody in the vetiver, and it comes off very differently than Oud for Grace. So when you look at it, just to give an overall, Oud for Grace is not going to be anything that you can think of right off the bat in Initio or in Parfums de Marly. It's not really anything that you can say it's a flanker of, except for Oud for Greatness, but it's not distinctly so much like Oud for Greatness that I would say you wouldn't not want to have both of them in your collection. Definitely, I'm probably going to have both of them in my collection. I give it, in my opinion, say an 8.5. So I wanted to give you kind of a quick and give you what I thought of it as far as what to do so that you could get your understanding and get your nose on it yourself. Now, when you come into the sweetness that comes in, that praline sweetness is really nice that comes in once it starts settling, once it starts drying down. The smokiness, like I said, is something that comes in straight off from the middle or straight off from the beginning. You get that smokiness. The bergamot and black pepper gives you a nice bright opening that also differentiates it from Oud for Greatness. So wanted really quickly just to give you my overall impressions on Oud for Grace. I think it's a winner. I think you'll like it, and I think it's worth getting your nose on. Just in the half, I will bring up now and talk about the differences really quickly so that you can see on screen the differences in the notes. So when you get into Oud for Grace, like I said, the opening, it has bergamot and black pepper, where Oud for Greatness is going to have saffron, lavender, and nutmeg. And Haltane, interesting enough, has bergamot and pink pepper in the opening. Gives it a similar type vibe in the opening. But then it starts going in different directions when you get into the heart, where Oud for Greatness has the praline and vanilla. Of course, Oud for Greatness has the oud as their heart. And then Haltane has saffron, praline, lavender, and clary sage, which kind of more aligns with both of them, and it gives you a little bit of both, where it has a praline, but it also has the lavender and the saffron, which kind of marries it to Oud for Greatness, not necessarily Oud for Grace. And then in the base, you're gonna get in Oud for Grace, oud, cedarwood, sandalwood, gaiac wood, and smoky woods, where Oud for Greatness's base is patchouli and oud, and in Haltane is oud, patchouli, vetiver, and leather. So in all of this, you're kind of, Oud for Grace is kind of going to give you sort of some of a middle ground between Haltane and Oud for Greatness, but again, it doesn't smell exactly like either one of them that you can say that it's not worth and being a fragrance all on its own. Again, I give it an 8.5. Think it's going to be a great fragrance. It is probably more considered with the smoky woods and the oud to be more of a cold weather fragrance, and I think that's something that you probably will see become very popular in this fall and winter. Hope you enjoyed the new release of my initial thoughts and reviews on it. I probably will go through more as it goes in. I do plan on having my own bottle. It will be another one that is from decant to full bottle. Hope you enjoyed the video. Check out Oud for Grace. I believe it should open and be released on August 17th, this Monday, right at about time when this video releases. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care. God bless.